So it's a good thing I waited on making this video because Dana White shot down the rumors that the Apex is being expanded. So the good old Apex, no changes happening there. Good, we all love the Apex. Fans, fighters, Moicano especially, man. I love I love his breakdowns. I love Moicano too. He's hilarious. But I'm just gonna play the clip and then we're gonna read the article. And I'm still gonna talk about my gripes with the Contender series and what the main issue is when you compare the Dana White Contender series fighters to uh, the Ultimate Fighter alumni. So we're going to look at that. Let's start off with this little clip in the interview here.
I love when people who have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
The topic of fire pay, some people are wondering if
So he ends up talking about fighter pay, and he ends up talking about the Apex. And this is the issue that me and a lot of fans have had with Dana White over the last year, man. Like, you gotta make it look like you're listening to the fans to some degree. You gotta make it look like you're actually reading the comments. And, it was a mix, but finally, we're expanding, and we're continuing with the Apex, which I'm gonna go over both those points.
Mix everything into the equation. A great performance. I don't want to put myself in a box
of course.
with just finishes.
And on the topic of fire pay, some people are
Okay, so that's the other one I completely talked over. Where I think MMA Guru has been the one really pushing this, and I agree with him that you should just make it a flat finish bonus instead of performance bonuses. But that doesn't mean you can't give guys who go out there and have war a performance bonus. If you make it a flat finish bonus, let's say you make it like 100K, again, $7 billion streaming deal, right? You're breaking all these records with Gate and all this, and I am one of the fans who do acknowledge you need to keep the fighters hungry, which I'm jumping over all of his points. Maybe I should just let this bit of the video play out here.
wondering if you would ever consider moving away from the show win model and maybe doing like flat purses across the.
Listen, man, this business has worked just fine. The model isn't broken. I love when people who have no fucking idea what they're talking about and don't know anything about the business give input. It's fun.
There was a report that the UFC Apex.
Little sassy there. Well, we know. We know. You want to know how we know? 3 antitrust lawsuits. Nearly $1 trillion paid out in, well, no, $1 billion paid out in them. A trillion would be ridiculous. But how are you going to say the model is working when every year you're forking over $300 million in a lawsuit? And I'm all for it, man. Buddy there, who was it who was still under contract? You guys remember the last lawsuit where who was it? Somebody was eligible for the paycheck and he turned it down because he wants to be loyal to the UFC. Well, like, even Dana would have been like, dude, take the money. It's your money. We already lost it, right? But like, how can you say the model is working when pay-per-views are completely tanking? You're getting rid of them in the US, but, still internationally, you're going to have pay-per-views, which means you're either going to have people using VPNs or, continuing to stream. And then you're going to have the portion of the community that will always pirate. for whatever reason it may be.
This is going to be expanded to have like 10 to 15,000.
That was the biggest bullshit story ever written. It's fucking unbelievable. They quoted people that literally said nothing to them, never spoke to them or anything. That entire story was a fucking absolute bullshit lie. The craziest thing we've ever seen. I fucking called Lene and said, Lene, this whole story is a lie. Everything about it is a lie, including the people that they quoted. Never talked to them.
So how does that happen?
How does that happen, Lene, the head of PR for the UFC? What did she say? What's the answer?
I don't know. They said we're sorry.
Okay.
They said we're sorry, and they did do a retraction and change it.
Okay, so you're satisfied with the recent construction to the apex? That's how it's going to be.
Yes, I mean to think that if you look at the construction that's going on at the apex, to even think that it's going to be a 10,000 seat arena, anyway. Yeah, it's fucking unbelievable. Complete lie. Everything about that story was a lie.
Yeah, I got a question about bonuses. So
I want to get this last little thing about the bonus while we're on Fighter Pay, because it only makes my point with the BKFC in perfect position to take over the UFC, or at least give them a run for their money. Dude, it's not about not wanting to do what the fans want. It's just a blatant shutdown of any idea that Dana White doesn't like. It's, just no passion. There's no promotion. Let's get this last
today
one
it
in here.
seemed like there was kind of a new thing where there were like instantaneous, the fighters were notified in the...
That's not a new thing. I mean, did you see the fights?
No, I mean, they definitely deserved it, but
It was the last 3 fights. So, I mean, I was looking at the fights from earlier. They were good, and there was some impressive stuff. Those 2 fights were like, yeah, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing before it had beat it, and anything after. If anything else was crazier than those, I'd have paid the money. I'd have just said, all right.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was kind of going to be a new thing moving forward, where you like fighters.
When shit like that happens again, yes, that will be a new thing that will happen moving forward. I mean, if those fights were the second fight on the entire night, I would have said the same thing.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. If it's a good performance, he'll give you money. But let's just read the article now. The UFC Apex undergoing renovations might add some more seats to the arena, but a story claiming a massive expansion is totally fabricated, according to UFC CEO Dana White. At the UFC 319 press conference, blah, 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 LV Sports Biz that claimed UFC Chief Business Officer Hunter Campbell confirmed plans to expand the venue to another 5,000 to 10,000 seats, while plans to add additional seating are in the works. White slammed that story in particular, not only because he claims it isn't even remotely true, but he has no idea how UFC officials could be involved with that story in the first place. We read this, whatever, we heard the clip. So, let's look at this, right? The UFC Apex, the main thing it does is 1, Contender Series, and 2, when the UFC doesn't have any other options, they have the Apex Arena. That's why they built it in 2021 or whenever they built it, right? But the issue is with the Apex card, along with the promotion. The promotion of, hey, yeah, these guys are on the card. Good luck figuring out who else is on it. Like, back in the day, you used to know every fighter on every card. You used to know every guy coming up immediately when he came into the UFC, and you could probably say at least, 5 things about whoever it may be. But you look at the stars that they have built recently, and this is the Contender Series alumni. Jamal Hill won the belt. TKO Jimmy Cruz, TKO Johnny Walker, TKO Thiago Santos, and ended up battering Glover Teixeira in Teixeira's retirement fight. The entire crowd left before as Teixeira was pouring his heart out. But whatever. And then he got TKO'd by Pereira after having to vacate the belt due to injury. TKO'd by Yuri in the long-awaited fight and was just beaten by Khalil Roundtree pretty badly. But again, these three guys are at the top of the division. I still think Jamal Hill is really good, and I think he'll be around the top 10 guaranteed. Ricky Simone on a 2-fight win streak. Caleb Bostrot and Smotherman lost to Batista, Song Yadong. TKO'd Rafael Senza. But you look at these names, right? These are all good fighters, but who really is a major star? The superstar Sean O'Malley, but they had to force this guy to become a star, and they need to force him, uh, you know, into everybody's throats, and it made him hated. The main reason I think Sean O'Malley gets flack is because of the push they got. He TKO'd Pavia, had the no contest against Pedro Munoz. Piotr Jan won that fight, and then he TKO'd Aljamain Sterling to win the belt, which was a really good win. He beat Marlon Vera to get that one back where he broke his leg. Jalen Turner, really good, but not a top lightweight. Talia Santos. Kevin Holland, he is a star. This is a guy that draws in attention, draws a lot of heat. He's probably the best heel we have in the UFC right now. Maybe Hamza. But you know, really good fighter. You look at who he lost to, Daniel Rodriguez. That was an incredible fight, though. Submitted Vicente Luque, beat Gunnar Nelson, got subbed by Ritter, broke his rib against Wednesday, submitted Mikhail Zajac is really, really good, and he lost to MVP in MVP's debut. And then from here, Jack Della Maddalena, why is he number 10 if he's a champion, undefeated in the UFC, about to face Islam Makhachev, which would be an incredible win for him if he's able to do it. And then from here, Dustin Jacoby, Grant Dawson, Phil Hodge, Gelton Almeida is a good one. I think he only has lost to Curtis Boyd in the UFC. Maybe he lost. No, I don't think he lost any in the UFC besides to Blades. And then Sadiq Youssef, Thiago Moises, Danny Gay, Caleb Barolo. Now, like you see here, where I'm going through these names and it's like, oh, this is a good fighter, this is a good fighter. This guy is pretty fun. He's pretty fun on the mic. He can draw a bit of attention. But the problem is that they really want to make their guy a homegrown talent. And none of these Contender Series guys are able to make it. And one of the biggest reasons, and I'm going to give a Sean O'Malley for this, right? Because Sean O'Malley, he was their guy, right? And you look at what he did before. This is an amateur. Lost 2 fights an amateur, but went 8-2, which is really good. And then debuted professionally in 2015. Leg locked, first round TKO, first round rear naked choke. unanimous decision. And then the knockouts that got him notoriety. Gets his first time real kick in LFA. They give him a shot on the Contender Series. And then he knocks out Alfred Kishakian in the first round. And then after that, unanimous decision. There's some grappling over in Quinwet Submits Takanori Gomi, which that's a really good person over submission went over. Got submitted by Hector Lombard. Had a draw with Gilbert Melendez. Again, Gilbert Melendez, if you don't know who that is. Really good friends and training partners with the Diaz brothers. He was really good back in the day. Then first round knockout. You had the leg break against Marlon Vera, but after that, comes out, gets 2 knockouts. Chris Moutinho, that fight was ridiculous. I do not know how Chris Moutinho stayed in that fight for that long. And then Pavia, Piotr Jan, we all know, right? He made money. UFC 306, the biggest gate of all time. Or no, UFC 3, was it? Yeah, 306, the spirit card, right? But these 2 losses to Marab. Now, Marab is the greatest bantamweight. It's between M. Sterling and Dominic Cruz. But you look at where he comes from, right? What a European promotions. Fought at CFFC, which is it's a pretty good promotion. We have a lot of guys in the UFC who are on pretty good runs that came from there. But went on this big 6-pack win streak, gets a spinning back fist, loses his first 2 fights in the UFC, one by split decision, one by Ricky Simone. And then he ends up going on a 2-fight win streak over Terry Ware and Brad Katona, goes to Sambo, wins 4 of his matches, and then I think he lost in the final. I may be wrong about that, but comes back to the UFC, beats Casey Kenny, Gustavo Lopez, John Dodson, who, fought at lightweight, was really good, fought Demetrius Johnson, beat Cody Stamen, TKO Marlon Moraes, loses a grappling match, but then beats Jose Aldo in a really good fight. Jose Aldo defended all of his takedowns. Piotr Jan beat him by unanimous decision. Henry Cejudo, he beat by unanimous decision. And then we know he out-grappled Sean O'Malley at UFC 306 to win the belt. And decided, you know what? I want to get 3 fights in next year. Didn't he say he wanted to defend the belt 4 times in 2025? But he ends up facing Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar has a really good first 2 rounds, but Umar, the cardio, everything, right? Now, it is kind of weird how he went from, the tank he had before to what he is now, but I mean, we don't have any proof of anything. You do have to factor in Sean O'Malley did not deserve an immediate rematch. They should have made the Corey fight, but now Corey is facing Marab. Does Sean O'Malley really compare to a Rashad Evans, who came on at heavyweight on The Ultimate Fighter, ended up winning the belt at 205, had a million pay-per-view buy fight against Rampage Jackson after, arguably the most entertaining season of The Ultimate Fighter. The fight itself was meh, but I mean, you know, the run that Rashad Evans had, right? You know, exclude that. Now, debuts professionally in 2004, goes on, this run right here, makes it to the Ultimate Fighter Season 2, again at heavyweight, unanimous decision, unanimous decision, unanimous decision. Keith Jardine, he was pretty decent back then. Um, Beats Brad Imes in the Season 2 finale by split decision. Sam Auger, Stephen Bonner, rest in peace, Jason Lambert, Sean Salmon has a unanimous draw against Tito Ortiz, beats Michael Bisping by split decision, and then the infamous Chuck Liddell fight where he ended up. Was it a right or what? You guys know what happened. He chained Chuck Liddell, and Chuck Liddell was never the same after it. And it got him a shot at Forrest Griffin at UFC 92, won the belt. He lost it to Machida instantly in his second fight, but then he went on a really good run. Thiago Santos, the Rampage season, the Ultimate Fighter that I alluded to, which yeah, that part wasn't really that good compared to the hype it had. I TKO'd Tito Ortiz, beats Phil Haas, and then ends up fighting his former training partner, John Jones. And, he back then, he was one of the first ones to say, hey, this is all an act. And this isn't the real John Jones. Didn't the car crash or the hit and run, his first hit and run, I should say, happen after this fight? I think it did, but he loses to Rashad, beats Antonio Nogueira, loses to Antonio Nogueira. Sorry, beats Dan Anderson with split decision. He goes to Sonnen, and then ended up losing his last fight, got one back in Equal FC, and retired off of that, which you love to see. But again, barely none of the fighters from the Dynamite Contender Series compared to these guys. And I know you got like Lucas Tracy out here trying to say, oh, Armand Sarukin, he's already top 15. No title at all. But I'm not saying Armand isn't good. He is very good. But, let's look at Forrest Griffin, right? The second guy on here. Debuted 2001, bunch of submissions, won all of his amateur fights in the first round. Loses to Dan Severn in his first professional bout, which Dan Severn, one of the OGs of the sport, one of the guys who won. Did he win? I know he won a couple of the first tournaments. I know he won the heavy. What? No, he wasn't the inaugural. The inaugural was Mark Coleman, I think. I forgot, man. But then first round sub decision goes on a really good win streak, 7-1. Ends up fighting Chael Sonnen at IFC, submits him in the first round, which was a win that aged phenomenally. Lost to Jimmy Horn, who had a shit ton of fights back then. Edson Ramos, and then he makes it to the Ultimate Fighter. Alex Shorner, Sam Hogan, and then you had the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 finale. And this fight right here counts, at least in my eyes, how I view this sport. I'm not viewing it mainly as a martial artist. I'm viewing it as a fight fan and the story of fighting, right? This is the most crucial fight, the most crucial win in UFC history. This win made the UFC, break in to the mainstream media and that. And, obviously they did not get the respect and they didn't get legalized in New York until Connor came around and all of that. But continuing on, first round rear naked choke, first round TKO, loses to Tito Ortiz by split decision. Stephen Bonner, Hector, loses to Keith Jardine, beats Hector Ramirez, beat Shogun, submits him in the third round. And then in a fight where nobody gave him a shot, he ended up beating Rampage Jackson, lost the title to Rashad, as we know. Got killed by Silva, beat Tito 2 more times, beat Rich Franklin. But, like, you see what I'm seeing? What I'm saying? Like, the story of the Ultimate Fighter guys and the trajectory that these guys had are nowhere near the Contender series fighters, right? And I think the major point, why is that doing it? I think the major point right here is, unlike the Contender series, you're getting multiple fights in. Again, Michael Bisping started at light heavyweight, ridiculous run. Matt Hamill loses to Rashad. Still, though, gets a couple of first-round finishers. Fights Chris Weidman, his chin made no sense. The infamous Dan Henderson overhand, Denise King. And then, I always liked Michael Bisping. I found him hilarious. I liked him back when nobody else liked him. He was so funny. Oh my god, dude! Like, you remember when people went off on Bisping for saying, like, the whole "what a guy" thing, instance where it's like, that's fucking gay. Like, oh dude, man, I loved watching this dude at press conferences. They're so funny. Well, loses to Chael O'Brien, and basically the narrative of Michael Bisping's career up until, his last 5 fights was the guy who always got into the number one contender fights and, fell short, but he won that belt. Short notice, first round knockout, got his revenge on Henderson, lost to GSP, and he had that fight against Gaston that he shouldn't have. But, like, you see what I'm saying? With the Ultimate Fighter, we are giving fighters multiple fights. We're giving them an opportunity to build their name, build their character, and have fans interested. And that is something that none of these guys are getting on the Contender series. And the main issue is there's nobody in the arena. There's no cheering. There's barely any sound. It was cool, and COVID in that day. Here are the shots. But again, this is a fight promotion. We want to promote these fighters. Why can't we get back to that, man? Can you really tell me? Like, this top 5 right here. Can you really tell me it stacks up to this top 5? Nate Diaz, man. I don't even need to go through his record. You know what he did, man. Like, he mainly got on the show because of Nick, right? But I mean, Nick was the star back in the day. I think Nick was the better fighter. But still, two of the best to ever do it. I don't care what you tell me. I want to end off with this. Now, why am I pulling up a picture of 3 guys in WWE? Well, this right here is the Shield. It was a faction that Vince McMahon made I believe back in 2013, if I remember correctly, the angle was like CM. Yeah, it was a part of the CM Punk shit, right? CM Punk was having his feud with John Cena, probably the best feud they had in the PG era, if I'm being honest. Um, but basically, these guys wore, tactical gear, and their gimmick was they would never coming off the ramp. I hit the mic. They were never coming off the ramp. They would always come in through the crowd, and they would surround the ring, or the lights would go out, and it's, oh my God, the best man again, and they went around. They beat up John Cena. They beat up Ryback, Rey Mysterio, like all of the big dogs at the time, and eventually, our boy over here, Seth Rollins, who dude, well, like I hear a lot of people talking about like Roman Reigns if he went into the UFC. I think Seth Rollins truly, if you train legitimately in MMA, this guy, his athletic ability is among the greatest I've ever seen in combat sports. I don't care if it's scripted, but you get this, right? These guys were built perfectly. Vince McMahon instantly knew, hey, these are our guys. And they pushed this man like no one other but John Cena got the kind of push that Roman Reigns got, and everybody hated it. But then they did the whole tribal chief gimmick, and Roman Reigns, many say he's the greatest wrestler of all time. The Bloodline storyline. I watched a bit on it, and dude, like it was really good storytelling what they did, with these guys. And then the guy in the middle, Dean Ambrose, he ended up winning the world title off of Seth Rollins because of Money in the Bank. But gotta be honest, once they split up this faction, he got this shit out of the stick. Went over to AEW, and he's still one of the biggest draws they got. Multiple times champion, all that stuff. But you don't see wrestlers. I've been watching a lot of wrestling channels lately. You don't see wrestlers being built up like this. You don't see fighters being built up the way they were back then on the Ultimate Fighter. The Ultimate Fighter is so fucking boring. I love Chael Sonnen to death, man. DC, I make fun of you, dude. You are one of my favorite fighters. Whatever I say about Daniel Cormier on this show, I'm saying it out of love, man, because one, he gets the game. He knows what we're doing here, and two, man, his career was fucking incredible. Like, I know I need to wrap this up here, but when DC won that title at heavyweight after Stipe, and I was a major Stipe fan. I was a major John Jones fan. I wanted him to win the second fight against John Jones. I really did. But damn man, I don't know where I was going with that. This is already a 34-minute video, but I hope you guys get what I'm saying, right? Like, number one, listen to the fans. Majority of us think it's a wonderful idea. Build out this arena. Build these guys. Take your time with the Contender Series, guys. The same way you did with the Ultimate Fighter those years ago. And make sure that when they are facing a Marab, an Ilya, a Islam, all of these European guys, that they have been against the right competition, and they've gradually learned over time. You look at Raoni Barca was getting Peyton Talbot there, right? I thought Raoni Barca was gonna win that purely because when I look at Peyton Talbot in the cage, he's really great, man. But I gotta end this video. Let me know, what do you think about Dana White shooting down this Apex expansion? And do you think the Contender Series should be more like the Ultimate Fighter? Or, what I think it really should be, it should be the WWE's NXT. We should be keeping these guys on the Contender Series for a few years, and then we bring them in. But let me know what you think down below. Thanks for watching. Again, I love those support you guys are showing me lately. Means a lot. But yeah, later.